with Citizens United and the recent Supreme Court case, we are definitely in trouble because they have a war chest with oligarchic contributions and limited judicial constraints. So they're going to outspend us this time. And I worry about people thinking, well, the wind's at our back. I'll be complacent. I'll just call it in and we're going to be fine. But people have to come away with the recognition that, no, we can't win by a small margin. If Orban won by a small margin, he'd still be in power today. We have to win by an overwhelming margin because notwithstanding the tailwinds, they're headwinds.
Welcome to Democracy on Fire. I'm Kay Brown. I'm so glad you're here and that you're paying attention to the political crisis unfolding around us. My guest, Gary Lux, has written a book, We Are the Power to Win the Future, that lays out a game plan for progressives to win a better future, starting with the 2026 midterm elections, which are coming up in just a few months. I'm really looking forward to this conversation because it's so important that we have a successful election and get things back on track. So thank you, Gary, for organizing all this information. I took a quick read of your book, and there's a lot of very useful information in there. And I agree with everything you said. So why don't you tell us about the plan? What's the plan to win? How are we going to do it?
Well, thank you for having me. And so tomorrow is July 4th, right? And it's the 250th anniversary of our country. And it's a time of peril, but also a time of opportunity. And I wrote the book because I think there's so many books and thought leaders that are speaking about, what the problem is and, what's wrong with our administration and why we're here. But there's nothing I've ever seen out there that captures how we navigate our way out of this mess. And so I've basically taken the roadmap of what we've learned as a legacy indivisible group of 1,200 volunteers for the last 10 years and all the years of experience, and just working on what people can do, whether they're in a blue part of the country, red, or purple, and a menu of choices. And there's so much that people can do. And the beginning is just realizing that we can do this and that even though people feel demoralized, but coming together with kindred spirits, number one is joining an organization. There's so many organizations. We list about 80 of them in the book. And so Indivisible is a great organization. Activate America is one of the organizations we actually helped fund with our first fundraiser, and now they're a nationwide organization, a juggernaut that flipped 7 seats from red to blue in their first 2018 midterm, and now they're nationwide. There's Commit to Democracy, there's Swing Left, there's the States Project, and on and on. There are 80 organizations. So number one, join a group because so many people feel powerless, isolated, and disempowered. And here's an opportunity to find political connections with people that care regardless of where you live. So number one, join an organization. We list them all by function and organizational activities. So that'd be number one. Number two, the Democrats are going to be outraised this time for the first time in many election cycles. So we have to raise money early, and it's not too late. But early money matters because that's an opportunity for these organizations to hire organizers to get the field operations underway. So when people show up after Labor Day, they can plug in and be effective. So, and I'm happy to talk more about how people can raise money because we have a whole methodology that we raised almost $500,000 in just 3 months. And we're just one little indivisible group. If the 2,500 indivisible groups in the country all did the same, we can match the war chest that the other side has. So there's much more to say, and I can go into depth, but I'll give you 2 or 3 more at a highlight. One is we're at farmers markets every weekend. And that's where we're the trusted advisors to bring people into the fold, whether we register them to vote or connect them to opportunities to give money or time to get the vote out. And then lastly, at the high level here, we're 4 months out. And so people should consider taking election day off. And if you're a lawyer, we need a legal protection. So there are organizations I list in the book on how you can get training to protect the vote. Like it will definitely be a challenge in terms of free and fair elections. So lawyers can step up. If you're a college student, you can register voters on campus. If you're a retiree, there's lots you can do. And whether you're working, all kinds of opportunities to walk precincts, knock on doors, write postcards, text bank, and phone bank. And so there's a lot we can do, and it's time to make that commitment now. And we complain a lot. Take a fraction of that time in which we complain and turn that into action with a weekly commitment of at least an hour or two and maybe more.
So I know a lot of people feel like, oh, my little contribution doesn't matter. Maybe my vote doesn't matter. And so how do you break through and really convince people that this is important and that their participation does matter and that we need every hand on deck? What are some of the things that you say to try to convince people?
Yeah, there's so many reasons to be optimistic. This election is a cycle of opportunity with a tailwind for all kinds of reasons. First of all, the Democrats, at least historically in recent times, have won 7 of the last 9 elections by the popular vote. But because of the Electoral College, we didn't win all of the White House opportunities. But we are winning elections. The 2024 election was an anomaly, and it hurt. And people are on the sidelines because of it. But we've won virtually all major elections. We were resoundingly effective in 2018 in the midterms. We've won in 2020. We've won a lot of these special elections, and we basically have a perfect record in the 2025 and early 2026 special elections. So the wind is at our back. Trump's poll numbers are abysmal. We have more enthusiasm by far than the other side, and we have the generic ballot on our side, which is strong enough, or at least as strong as it was in 2018 in the midterm. So we can do really well, and so there's reason to believe, not just now, but beyond in 2028, we can do this. What's important to note is that in 2024, Activate America, the organization I mentioned earlier, they did some analysis, and for the states, the swing states in which they invested time and effort, they moved the needle in the blue direction 2 to 4%. And so compared to districts where there was disinvestment or no investment at all. So we are within razor thin margins of winning back both houses, as you mentioned, just 3 seats in the House. So 2 to 4% moves the needle. So people feel like, oh, in 2024 we didn't succeed, so why should I try? You've got lapsed activists that are demoralized. But at the end of the day, the data proves that we move the needle. And the key point about the 2 to 4% that moves the needle by investing with getting the vote out, that translates in most congressional districts to about 6,000 votes. And in 2024, 24 seats, roughly 24 seats, were decided by less than 6,000 votes. So it really matters. And I'm here in California. An hour and a half drive is a congressional district that was won by a Democrat by under 200 votes. So it matters, not just boots on the ground, but even small dollar donations add up, and we need all of the above.
Well, one of the things I was interested to read in your book was how many people did not bother to vote, did not show up. Close to 90 million Americans did not participate. And that's more than voted for either of the other candidates. with Trump getting 77 million and Harris 75 million across the country, the non-participating 90 million people had an outsized impact on the outcome. And that's the group that we need to get involved. And we need to um, connect those dots about why what's happening to us really matters. And I saw one thing that said, if you're want to do something more than just show up at a protest, you need to read Gary's book because it's kind of the next step.
I remember the day after the first No Kings protest. No Kings was on a Saturday, and the next day I was at a nearby farmers market handing out a couple hundred flyers on how we can defeat vulnerable Republicans. And a woman, I handed her a flyer and she said, "Oh, I went to No Kings yesterday. I'm good." And I said, "Really? I mean, posting your pictures and calling it good is not nearly enough. It's one of 31 flavors, and we will fail if we just do the feel good show up at protests. Not to diminish the importance of protests, because there's all kinds of data suggesting that indirectly and otherwise it does move the needle, but it's just not enough. And we have to get back to grassroots involvement. I was walking precincts in October 2024. I visited a close college friend in Tucson, Arizona, and several of my friends elsewhere. We all converged on my friend's house, and we spent 3 weekends walking precincts. And on the very last day, I think it was election day, I was a little tired, and I was thinking, man, I do not want to knock on another door. I'm just kind of done. And I got back into my rental car, and I don't know where, I just had this inspiring thought that who am I to complain about knocking on another door? To me, it's service, because so many people, our ancestors and others, have given the ultimate sacrifice in terms of fighting and dying on the battlefield. I go back to see my friends for a nice dinner, talk about the day, and it's a tiny sacrifice. And for my entire life, I've taken for granted the rule of law and democracy and all these freedoms and opportunities that are in peril. And at the end of the day, it's a small bit of investment. So working the farmers markets on the weekends, I don't always want to do it, but the alternative is just unacceptable. So the other thing I just wanted to share with you too is people are somewhat intimidated by the idea of, well, knocking on doors for strangers seems a bit intimidating, especially if you haven't done it before. But at the end of the day, people need to know that you're not persuading people. There's something known as deep canvassing, which I write about, which is persuasion, but that's a longer game. But the vast majority of what we need now in the near term is just talking to folks in friendly territory and target-rich environments. Because if there are 90 million people that sat on the sidelines, and that's for all kinds of reasons, from disinformation, people feeling like their vote doesn't count, that's unfortunately a headwind. But there are occasional voters, the ones we're targeting, that need that nudge. And knocking on doors has a turnout effectiveness of 7%. It's the most effective. And then the next most effective effort is phone banking. And the vast majority of times you're talking to people on your side or leaving messages, but you're not having to persuade someone. So that's 3 to 4% effective in turning out the vote. And then down from there is postcarding, writing personal postcards to people who've been ignored for a long period of time. And that's 1 to 2% effective. And then lastly, text banking to remind people of the details of where to vote and logistics. That's 0.5%. So there's a lot that we can do to take those 90 million people. And remember, in 2024, the vote, even though Trump, number one, did not win by 50%, he won by a plurality. And secondly, there were 230,000 votes in 3 states, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, that electorally could have shifted in our column. So really narrow margins, and there was no mandate despite what he says. So it's up to us to step into action.
So the money angle you mentioned that the Republicans are expected, or we know right now they have a much larger amount of money accumulated for this than the Democrats do. In fact, the Democrats might be in debt and struggling to raise money at the national level. What are you recommending, or what's your program for how grassroots groups can help with this?
Yeah, thank you for that. It's important to talk about this because historically the Republicans outspent the Democrats and progressives. And then in recent cycles, we've caught up with small dollar donations. But with Citizens United and the recent Supreme Court case, uh, we are definitely in trouble because they have a war chest with oligarchic contributions and limited judicial constraints. So they're going to outspend us this time. And another reason why they're outspending us is because people sat on the sidelines demoralized after 2024. And ultimately, they weren't giving money to the Democratic Party or to the NGO grassroots. So number one, we have to embrace the Democratic Party. Yes, they failed in some ways in the recent election. They've done well, except for that one 2024 election. And so the Democratic Party is under new leadership with Ken Martin. And I'm excited to say they're focused on a 50-state strategy to invest not just in winning the midterms, but beyond in 2028 and beyond. There are many things that they're doing right, and they're back to voter registration where they let it go. So there's lessons learned. So we have to not demonize the Democratic Party. We will fail if we do. We have to embrace them in partnership with the NGOs and the grassroots organizations I write about in the book. So together, we need to support both. And the way we do that is through this strategy I'll share with you in a moment, which is what we call parties for democracy, or virtual parties for democracy. We were first focused in 2020 on a big concert. We spent 6 months planning to raise money, and we were closing in on having Bonnie Raitt perform and David Crosby. And then the effort was derailed by COVID. And so instead of giving up, we pivoted and we did virtual parties. And it's an underutilized strategy. And not only is it underutilized, if it's used, it's not done well enough. We have a whole toolkit on how to do it. And so we, as I mentioned, we raised $450,000 in 3 months. And the way we did it was we found lots of hosts or co-hosts to celebrate a birthday, a half birthday, an anniversary, or some event, and invite their friends and family across the country. And for a light lift with a big payoff, with limited time and effort, maybe 4 to 5 hours, on average, we've raised $10,000 per party. So take 10 people, that's $100,000. And the money can go to the Democratic Party. It can go to Activate America. It can go to Flip the Vote. It can go to the States Project, any of the organizations I list. So the host decides which organizations to support. And people thank us because they are so overwhelmed by these unwanted texts and emails for money. You can unsubscribe because it's a curated strategic effort that you educate your friends and family on giving money where we know it moves the needle effectively. So people thank us for it, and the money really moves the needle in the left or blue direction, and early money matters. So now's the time to do it. And I have a whole toolkit on our website at garylux.com, GARYLUCKS.com, on how you can do that. And we work with you. We just did 2 parties and raised $40,000 recently, and it works. It's just underutilized, and we can help you curate it with a light lift or a big payoff.
And where can people find your book?
So the book is available at Barnes & Noble. It's available at your local bookstore. You can order it there and have it delivered. It's on Amazon. It was the #1 new release for political advocacy during the duration of new releases. So it's available on Amazon and also on an ebook. And so it just came out about 6 weeks ago. I have a whole piece on how we can beat autocracy, but the only way we do it we have to win by a landslide. And I worry about people thinking, well, the wind's at our back. I'll be complacent. I'll just call it in and we're going to be fine. But people have to come away with the recognition that, no, we can't win by a small margin. If Orban won by a small margin, he'd still be in power today. We have to win by an overwhelming margin because notwithstanding the tailwinds, they're headwinds. So we go with what we have at our back, with the wind at our back, but we don't give up and we leave it all in the playing field with no regrets. And on November 4th, we wake up and realize we can get some accountability, we get some guardrails politically, and we can start reclaiming our democracy.
So let's do it. We need everybody. If you're listening, please get this book. If you're not sure what you could do, there's a lot of specific strategic information in there that will be helpful. And we just encourage you to, whatever your niche is, whatever your small contribution is, it matters and it will make a difference. And if we all do a little, it'll add up to a lot. And this is the time. Now is the time for everybody to get involved. So thank you so much, Gary, for being here and chatting with us and for writing this book and helping mobilize Americans to take back our democracy, which is on fire. So
thank you. Yeah.
Thanks.
Well, yeah, we are the cavalry and we are the power. So let's use that power. So thanks so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks a lot.
This is Lee McGowan, otherwise known as Politics Girl, and you are watching the United America Network. My name is Andrea Garcia, and I'm running for judge of the Riverside County Superior Court, seat number 10. I am an immigration deputy public defender. I have the most judicial endorsements of any candidate in this race. This is because of my broad and comprehensive experience. For nearly 20 years, I have practiced in both federal and state courts, defending due process for those seeking the American dream. I have defended children like my client I call Sophia, who was brought to the United States by human smugglers after losing both her parents. I was able to successfully obtain a guardianship for her in state probate court and then defend her against deportation. Today, Sophia has a safe place to call home. I am running for judge because I believe in due process and the rule of law, and I believe that in a healthy democracy, independent courts are a cornerstone. My name is Andrea Garcia, and I'm running for judge of the Riverside County Superior Court, seat number 10. I hope to earn your vote. Thank you.
Andrea Garcia is proudly endorsed by the Riverside County Democratic Party.
If you've had enough and want to wake up our recalcitrant Congress, join me on Democracy on Fire with Kay Brown for the top 23 reasons we need regime change now. Hope to see you there. Democracy on Fire on United America Network.